Sometimes I'll come across something, maybe in my reading or a line in a movie or something that someone says to me in a conversation that just grips me. It resonates on a deep level for some reason. Maybe it's a paradigm shift, or it names something that I've experienced to be true but have never articulated, or it's a new insight. Well, this past week, I had one of these moments. I was reading an article about a Christian faith-based response to advocating for better gun legislation in our country. And I came across this quote by the Reverend Rob Schenck, in which he says this: "You never want to pray for something that you are unwilling to be the answer to." Now, the reason that this stood out to me in such a profound way is because it names something that has often bothered me about prayer, even my own prayers at times, and that is that sometimes our prayers are cheap. In the same way that being generous with someone else's money hardly counts as generosity, saying a prayer for someone or for something without any personal investment in the outcome of that prayer isn't really prayer. It's simply missing the main ingredients that distinguishes a prayer from empty words. So if there's no personal investment, there's no risk. And if there's no risk, there's nothing at stake. If the prayer gets answered or it doesn't get answered, it doesn't really make a difference to me. And if there's nothing at stake, then the heart is not in it. And the heart prays for what it cares for. You should never pray for something that you are unwilling to be the answer to. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot in light of recent events in our country. Now, as we all know, the headlines have been dominated in the last few months by news related to one disease, COVID-19. But in the last 10 days, another disease has become the focus of our media. Now, this disease, is one that we've lived with for a lot longer, a long time. And like COVID-19, it has its own at-risk demographic, a particular section of our population that is utterly exposed and vulnerable. And I'm talking about the disease of racial prejudice and inequality in our nation. The events surrounding the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, a young 25-year-old black man in Georgia, has woken us up from this daze that we've been in with COVID-19 and has brought back into the forefront of our consciousness as a nation our struggle against this insidious disease and the resulting double standard within our justice system. This system tells us that everyone is equal under the law, and that the life of a black person is weighed equally against the life of a white person in the eyes of the law, and there's no discrimination. That's what it says. And yet, time and time again, our justice system seems to fail to bear witness to this truth in its actions. And sometimes the inequality is so blatant, like with the Ahmaud Arbery case, that it just leaves us feeling so depressed as a nation at just how far we still have to go to achieve justice for our brothers and sisters in the black community in America. If only we were as committed to eradicating this disease, which has plagued our nation since the very beginning and still permeates every sector of our society, as we are committed to eradicating COVID-19. Imagine the change that an effort on this scale could bring about. So why don't we do this? Well, I believe that one of the main obstacles is our human tendency to be less responsive when we are not personally or directly affected. So as long as injustice done to someone else doesn't pose a threat to me, then the motivation to act for change is much less. This is one of the main problems, I believe, with suffering in our world. This is why the voices of those who cry out for help, for justice, or for sanctuary, or for water, for food, or for medical care, or for protection, why these voices fall often on deaf ears. It's because as long as the pain doesn't touch me and touch my loved ones, then for some reason it just doesn't feel as real or as urgent And it doesn't feel as motivating for me to step outside of my comfort zone and to step in to do something about it. A much easier thing to do is to pray. And so we say things like, I'll pray for you, or I'll be in prayer for this or for that situation, or I pray for social change, or I pray for those who are isolated at home right now without any friends or family during COVID-19. I'll pray for them. Or I pray for an end to racial injustice and racial inequality, or I pray for a reduction in gun violence in our nation. But here's the thing. As well-meaning as these prayers are, as long as there is an absence of a personal investment in the answer to these prayers, they're just empty words, and change will not come. Now, can God act in this world without us? Yes. Does God answer prayer without our involvement? I hope so. But are there prayers that go unanswered because we fail to see that we are the answer to those prayers, that we fail to see and realize that we are God's hands and feet in this world? Absolutely. So what happens when we begin to approach prayer with a willingness, but more than a willingness, with an expectation that we are to play a part, at least, in being the answer to that prayer? I wonder if the miracles that we have been waiting on will start to unfold before us.